If you ever visit Yosemite National Park and a ranger tells you a trail is closed, don't argue. Don't ask why. Don't try to go around the barricade. And if you ever hear another ranger quietly tell you, that trail isn't closed because it's dangerous. It's closed because it remembers people. Leave immediately. I worked as a park ranger in Yosemite for almost 6 years. During that time, I lied to thousands of visitors. Not because I wanted to, because I signed paperwork that legally required me to. Every warning sign, every trail closure, every unsafe due to rockfall notice. Most of them were real. Some of them weren't. There were places inside Yosemite that had absolutely nothing to do with landslides, wildlife, or weather. Places that simply weren't meant to have people. The National Park Service has official rules. The public sees those. Employees receive another list. It's never printed. It's never emailed. Your supervisor simply memorizes it, then passes it to you on your first night. Most new rangers laugh. I did too. Nobody laughs after their first week, because eventually, every ranger breaks one, and the lucky ones only break it once. I transferred to Yosemite in late May, right before tourist season exploded. I'd worked at 3 other national parks. I knew wilderness. I knew search and rescue. I knew how people behaved when they got lost. Nothing about Yosemite seemed unusual during orientation. We covered wildlife encounters, medical emergencies, fire response, radio procedures, crowd management, exactly what I expected. Then, after everyone else left, Chief Ranger Aaron Holt stopped me at the office door. Stay behind for a minute. His tone wasn't serious. It wasn't casual either. It sounded tired. He waited until the hallway was empty before shutting the door. Then he reached into a locked cabinet and removed a small notebook. The cover had no writing, no park logo, nothing. He didn't hand it to me. He simply opened it. Every page contained one handwritten rule. Short, simple, no explanations. He let me read them one by one. These aren't official. They're survival rules. I smiled politely. I've heard parks have traditions. He didn't smile back. No, we have survivors. He turned the first page. Never whistle after sunset. Second page. If a visitor tells you they found a new trail that isn't on the map, don't ask where it is. Escort them back immediately. Third, if every bird suddenly goes silent, stop walking. Don't move until the sound returns. Fourth, never spend the night alone in an active fire lookout tower, even if you're ordered to. Fifth, if someone waves at you from Half Dome after dark, do not wave back. Sixth, if dispatch tells you they're sending another ranger to your location, ask for their employee ID before answering them. Every time. Seventh, he paused longer before turning the page. Never open a trail that the park has permanently closed, no matter who gives the order. I looked up. That's it. For now. For now. He closed the notebook. You'll understand later. The first few days were exactly what you'd expect. Traffic, heat, missing hikers, medical calls, tourists trying to pet deer because they thought they were friendly. Nothing strange. My patrol partner was Ranger Emily Vargas. She'd worked Yosemite for 12 years. She knew every trail by memory, every shortcut, every seasonal creek. She also refused to answer certain questions. The first time I asked why one particular trail had 3 locked gates instead of 1, she changed the subject. The second time, she simply said, "You'll stop asking." That answer bothered me more than if she'd ignored me. 3 days later, I met my first rule. Not broke it, met it. We were finishing an evening patrol near Glacier Point when the forest became unnaturally quiet. At first I didn't notice. Then Emily suddenly froze. Her flashlight remained pointed toward the ground. "Don't move." "What?" "Listen." I listened. Nothing. No birds. No insects. No wind. Even the trees seemed frozen. The silence didn't feel natural. It felt occupied. Emily slowly looked at her watch. "Count." "What?" "Count to 60. I almost laughed. Instead, something deep in my instincts told me not to. So I counted, quietly. 22. 23, 24. A heavy footstep echoed somewhere behind us. Far too heavy to belong to a person or a bear. Another step, closer. 39, 40, 41. The sound stopped. Exactly when I reached 60, the birds exploded back into song, like someone had flipped a switch. Emily exhaled. Good. What was that? She started walking. You counted. That's all that matters. That night, I checked wildlife reports. Nothing unusual. No bear sightings. No elk migration. Nothing. The next morning, I mentioned it to another ranger during breakfast. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. You heard footsteps? I nodded. He quietly stood up, picked up his tray, and moved to another table. No explanation. The first truly impossible thing happened on my 7th day. Dispatch received a call from 2 backpackers. They claimed they'd accidentally wandered onto an old trail that wasn't marked on any park map. Emily's face changed the moment she heard the report. She grabbed the radio. Get their GPS. Static. Then dispatch answered. They're transmitting coordinates now. Emily stared at the screen, then whispered something I barely heard. No. What? That's impossible. The coordinates pointed to a canyon that officially had no trails. No roads. Nothing. Yet satellite imagery clearly showed a path running straight through it. A path nobody had ever documented. Within minutes, we reached the backpackers. Both looked exhausted, shaken. One of them kept glancing over his shoulder. Emily asked the usual questions. Anyone hurt? No. You alone? They hesitated. There was... The younger man frowned. I don't know. His friend interrupted. There was another hiker. Emily immediately became very still. What did he look like? I couldn't really see. He stayed ahead of us. He kept looking back, like he wanted us to follow. My stomach tightened. What happened? The older backpacker swallowed. He disappeared. Emily asked the next question so quickly it sounded rehearsed. Did he ever speak? Both men nodded. He kept saying, the park forgot to put this trail back. Emily didn't ask another question. She simply ordered both men into the patrol truck. Then, without even checking the area, she drove away. I looked back through the rear window. The trailhead sat between 2 enormous granite boulders. Completely real, completely visible. And yet, as we rounded the next bend, it was gone. Not hidden. Gone. Just solid rock where the opening had been seconds earlier. I turned toward Emily. You saw that? She nodded once, never taking her eyes off the road. Then she quietly said something that made every hair on my arms stand up. Don't ever try to remember where it was. Before I could ask why, dispatch called again. Unit 7. Emily reached for the radio, then stopped. The voice had just addressed her by name, not her call sign, not Unit 7. It simply said, Emily, can you hear me? She slowly lowered her hand and whispered, ask for the employee ID. My mouth suddenly felt dry because I remembered Rule 6. And somehow, without either of us touching the radio, the voice spoke again, softly, almost amused. I knew you'd remember that one. Nobody moved. The radio sat between us, hissing softly. Neither of us had answered. Neither of us had touched the microphone. Yet whoever, or whatever, was speaking knew exactly why we were staying silent. Then the voice came again. Calm, patient, almost friendly. Emily, I know you're checking, so go ahead. Ask me. Emily slowly picked up the microphone. Her hand wasn't shaking. Mine was. Dispatch. State your employee ID. Silence. 5 long seconds. Then, static burst from the speaker so loudly it made me flinch. After the static came laughter. Not loud, not manic, just one quiet chuckle. Then the transmission died. Emily immediately switched the radio off. Not muted, off. She didn't speak for nearly a mile. Finally, she sighed. It learns. What learns? The thing that copies voices. I stared at her. What are you talking about? She kept driving. Don't ask questions you can't unknow. Back at the ranger station, Emily filed an incident report. Except, she left half of it blank. No mention of the strange radio call. No mention of the disappearing trail. Nothing. When I questioned her, she looked genuinely confused. Who do you think reads these reports? The Park Service. She gave a tired smile. No, they only read the public ones. That afternoon, Chief Holt called me in his office. He already knew. Nobody had told him. At least, nobody that I knew of. He closed the blinds before speaking. So, you heard dispatch. I nodded. Ow. Doesn't matter. What matters is you follow the rule. He opened the notebook again, not to the first page, to one near the middle. There were far more than 7 rules. The others had been hidden beneath folded pages. He let me read only one. Never assume every voice on the park radio belongs to a ranger. Before I could finish the sentence, he shut the notebook. You'll learn the others if you survive long enough. The next week was strangely quiet, almost disappointingly normal, which somehow made everything worse. The strange events weren't constant. They came in clusters, long periods of peace, followed by something impossible. That uncertainty kept every ranger on edge. Nobody ever relaxed after sunset. Nobody. One evening, Emily and I were checking permits near Tuolumne Meadows. A family approached us. Parents. 2 little girls. The younger one couldn't have been older than 7. She tugged on my sleeve. Mr. Ranger? Yeah. Why does that man keep following us? My stomach tightened. What man? She pointed into the forest. There. I looked. Nothing. Just pine trees. Granite. Shadows. Her father laughed awkwardly. She's got an imagination. The girl frowned. No. He's right there. He keeps smiling. Emily crouched beside the child. What color is his uniform? The little girl answered immediately. Green. Emily's expression didn't change. What about his hat? It's old. He has a funny badge. What kind? The little girl thought for a moment. It looks broken. Emily stood up so fast it startled everyone. The visitor center closes in 15 minutes. You need to leave the park before dark. The father blinked. But we're camping. Emily interrupted. Not tonight. I strongly suggest getting a hotel outside the valley. The parents looked annoyed, but something in Emily's voice convinced them. They packed up within half an hour. As their SUV disappeared down the road, Emily quietly whispered, Good. I looked back toward the forest. Still nothing. Then, for less than a second, I saw movement between 2 trees. Someone stepped behind a trunk. Not running, not hiding, just slowly moving out of sight. He wore green. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I remembered the little girl's certainty. Adults hadn't seen anyone, only her. Children noticed things adults ignored. Or maybe things ignored adults. 2 days later, I was assigned my first overnight watch. Not on a fire lookout. Rulfer had made sure I noticed that. Instead, I was stationed near an old maintenance road closed to public traffic decades ago. Simple assignment. Prevent trespassers. Report wildlife. Nothing unusual. Chief Holt gave me one extra instruction before I left. If anyone walks out of the trees, ask them where they parked. I frowned. What if they're hikers? They'll answer. And if they don't? He didn't respond. Around 11 that night, I heard footsteps. Human footsteps. Steady. Deliberate. A man emerged from the darkness, carrying an old canvas backpack. He looked to be in his 60s. Gray beard. Flannel shirt. Worn hiking boots. He smiled politely. Evening. I remembered Holt's words. Where'd you park? The man blinked, then smiled wider. I walked. From where? The trail. There aren't any public trails here. He tilted his head. There used to be. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. His words weren't threatening. They sounded nostalgic, like he genuinely missed something. Sir, this area is closed. I need you to head back. He nodded. Of course. Then he asked quietly, do they still count them? What? The names. I frowned. What names? The ones the mountain keeps. Before I could answer, he looked over my shoulder. His smile vanished. Oh, he found you already. I spun around. Nothing. When I looked back, the old man was gone. Not walking away. Gone. The gravel road stretched empty in both directions. No flashlight. No footsteps. No sound. Just cold mountain air. The radio crackled. Mason. It was Emily. Status check. I grabbed the microphone. Everything's fin. I stopped. Rule 6. Always verify. Employee ID. There was a brief pause. Then Emily answered correctly. Without hesitation. I finally relaxed. I just had contact with an elderly male. No vehicle. No direction of travel. Silence. Then Emily asked one question. Did he ask about names? I froze. Yes. Another long pause. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded different. Not copied, not frightened, just resigned. Come back. Now. Why? Because if he mentioned the names, it means the park finally noticed yours. I drove back faster than I should have. The speed limit through that stretch of Yosemite was 35. I was doing almost 60. Every curve felt too slow. Every stand of trees looked like something was about to step into the headlights. Emily stayed on the radio the entire time. Not talking, just breathing. Every 30 seconds, she'd ask the same question. Mason, I'm here. Another 30 seconds. Mason, I'm still here. It wasn't comforting. It felt like she was making sure someone else hadn't answered instead. When I reached the ranger station, the parking lot looked wrong. Every patrol truck was parked exactly where it should be. Every light inside the building was on. But there wasn't a single person outside. No mechanics. No dispatch runners. No late-night maintenance crew. Nothing. Emily met me just inside the front entrance. She immediately took my radio, removed the battery, then placed it inside a steel cabinet mounted beside the dispatcher desk. I stared at her. What are you doing? They listen. Through the radios? Sometimes. What do you mean sometimes? She rubbed her temples. We've stopped trying to figure out how. Chief Holt was waiting in the conference room. The notebook sat on the table. This time he didn't hide it. Instead, he opened almost halfway through. There are 23 rules. I blinked. I thought there were 7. So did you. He slid the notebook toward me. Read the next one. The handwriting matched the others. Simple. Clean. Almost clinical. Rule 8. If someone asks whether the park still remembers names, report to the station before sunrise. Do not finish your patrol. I looked up. So that old man was real. Holt didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, he was once. The room went silent. I waited for someone to explain. Nobody did. Instead, Emily stood up and pulled a large topographic map off the wall. It was an old survey map of Yosemite, much older than anything sold in visitor centers. Several locations had been circled in red pencil. None appeared on the public map. One circle caught my attention. It was drawn over an empty valley. Except, I recognized the place. It wasn't empty. I'd driven past it every day. There isn't a valley there. There are cabins. Emily nodded. Today, what do you mean? She traced her finger along faded contour lines. Before 1983, those cabins didn't exist. They were built over something. What? Neither of them answered. Instead, Holt unlocked another cabinet. Inside were dozens of weather journals. Each belonged to a former ranger. Some dated back almost 80 years. He handed me the thinnest one. The last entry filled barely half a page. The rules don't protect us from it. They protect it from us. That sentence stayed in my head. Protected it? Everything we'd done, every strange rule, every trail closure, every lie told to visitors, had been keeping people safe, hadn't it? I looked at Holt. What exactly are we protecting? His expression hardened. The wrong question. At sunrise, we drove to a section of the park tourists never saw. No signs pointed toward it. No trails appeared on public maps. Just an old maintenance road ending at a chain-link gate. Beyond it stood a meadow. Beautiful. Perfectly ordinary. Wildflowers. Pine trees. Morning fog. Birdsong. Nothing frightening about it. Except, every ranger who stepped through the gate instinctively removed their badge. Including Holt. Including Emily. I copied them. Nobody had to tell me. For some reason, it felt rude to wear one there. The meadow contained something I'd never seen before. Hundreds of wooden posts, arranged in uneven rows. Each carried a small brass plate. No names, just dates. Thousands of dates. Some recent, some nearly a century old. I walked to the nearest marker. July 14, 1998. Nothing else. The next. September 3rd, 1972. The next. October 11th, 2016. Every marker represented only a date. No explanation. No identity. I turned toward Emily. What is this place? She answered quietly. Everyone asks that. And we're told not to. While the others inspected the perimeter, I wandered farther into the meadow. Maybe 50 yards. Maybe less. The fog thickened unexpectedly. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Then, I heard someone behind me. Mason. Emily. I turned. She stood only a few feet away. You need to come back. Something felt wrong immediately. Her uniform looked correct. Her voice sounded correct. But she was still wearing her badge. The real Emily had removed hers before entering. My pulse quickened. What's your employee ID? She smiled. You already know it. Tell me. She didn't answer. Instead, she asked, do you remember your first day here? Of course. Are you sure? The question hit harder than I expected. Because, for the first time, I wasn't sure. I remembered arriving. I remembered orientation. But I couldn't remember driving through the entrance gate. I couldn't remember unpacking my cabin. I couldn't remember sleeping that first night. There were gaps. Small ones. But unmistakable. The smiling Emily tilted her head. It starts there. A hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around. The real Emily stood behind me. Badge removed. Breathing hard. Mason. Don't answer anyone. I looked back. The other Emily was gone. Only fog remained. Emily followed my gaze. You saw me. I nodded. She closed her eyes. Damn. What? It stopped using strangers. We left the meadow immediately. Nobody spoke until we reached the trucks. Before climbing inside, Holt looked directly at me. Has anyone asked you to remember something? What? A place. A person. A trail. I thought about it. Then remember the old hiker. Do they still count the names? I repeated the conversation. Holt didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he looked older somehow. You're moving faster than I did. What does that mean? It usually takes months. I stared at him. For what? He looked toward the meadow behind us, then quietly said, for it to start replacing your memories with its own. At that exact moment, my phone vibrated. No signal bars, no internet, no service. Yet somehow, a new photograph had appeared in my gallery, taken only seconds earlier. It showed the three of us standing beside the trucks. Holt, Emily, me, except there were 4 people in the picture. Standing between Holt and me was the old hiker, smiling directly into the camera. None of us remembered him being there. But what truly froze the blood in my veins was that Emily wasn't looking at the camera. She was staring straight at him, as if she'd been able to see him the entire time. That Emily's face drained of color the moment she saw the photograph. She didn't ask where it had come from. She didn't ask who had taken it. She simply whispered. It finally let itself be photographed. Chief Holt took the phone from my hand. He studied the image for several seconds. Then he did something I never expected. He dropped my phone onto the gravel, raised his boot, and crushed it until the screen shattered. I stared at him. What the hell? You don't keep those. It's evidence. No, it's an invitation. We drove back to the station in complete silence. No radio, no conversation, just the sound of tires against wet pavement. When we arrived, Holt ordered every ranger into the briefing room. For the first time since I'd arrived at Yosemite, every active ranger was in the same room. 22 people. Nobody smiled. Nobody joked. Nobody even looked surprised to see me. Instead, they all looked sorry. Holt stood at the front. He didn't bother with introductions. He looked directly at me. Mason, tonight, you'll understand why visitors never hear the real rules. He opened the old notebook. Not to Rule 8, not to Rule 9. The final page. The handwriting was different, older, messier, as though several people had written over each other for decades. There wasn't another rule. There was only one sentence. The rules were never written to protect the rangers. I looked up. They're for the visitors. Holt slowly shook his head. No, they're for the park. Nobody spoke. Finally, Emily broke the silence. It wasn't always like this. Holt nodded. There was a fire. 1932. Small. Contained. But after it, people started reporting impossible trails. Voices. Missing time. Entire patrols that returned with one extra ranger. The room remained perfectly still. Every single person had heard this before. Only I hadn't. Holt continued. We tried closing trails. It didn't help. We tried investigations. It didn't help. We even brought in the military. He laughed once. Without humor. They left after 3 days. What did they find? I asked. They stopped telling us. Just after sunset, the station's emergency alarm activated. Not the fire alarm, not weather. A sound I'd never heard before. 3 long tones, then silence. Every ranger immediately stood. Nobody needed instructions. Emily handed me my radio. "This time, keep it on." I frowned. "I thought you said. It wants you to hear this." Dispatch spoke. Her voice was shaking. Multiple reports. Visitors seeing additional rangers. The room froze. Additional. Not missing. Not injured. Additional. One report after another flooded in. A family reported 5 rangers directing traffic where only 2 were assigned. A tour group claimed they'd been escorted by a ranger nobody else could identify. A climber said another ranger had offered to lead him down a trail that didn't exist. Every report described the same thing. Perfect uniforms. Perfect smiles. No name tags. No radios. No badges. Holt looked at all of us. It has never done this before. What changed? Nobody answered. Then, every radio in the room activated simultaneously. Same voice. Different speakers. Mason. Not my call sign. Not Unit 7. Just Mason. The room became deathly quiet. The voice continued. "You've remembered enough." Emily whispered, "Don't answer." The voice laughed softly. I wasn't asking him. One by one, every ranger in the room turned toward the empty hallway outside the briefing room. Footsteps. Calm. Measured. Someone was walking toward us. Boots on wooden flooring. One step. Every 3 seconds. Another. Closer. Another. Closer. Nobody moved. The footsteps stopped outside the open doorway. A man stepped inside. Green Ranger uniform. Campaign hat. Spotless boots. He looked exactly like every ranger I'd seen in the impossible photographs. Except now, I could finally see his face. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Holt's. It wasn't anyone's. Every time I looked directly at him, his features subtly changed. For a heartbeat, he resembled Holt. Then Emily. Then me. Then someone I'd never met. As though my brain couldn't decide what it was seeing. He smiled politely. "I believe. One of you belongs with me." No one answered. He slowly looked around the room, stopping briefly on each ranger, until his eyes reached mine. "There you are." Before anyone could react, Chief Holt stepped forward. "No." The smiling ranger looked almost disappointed. "You've delayed this long enough." Holt removed his own badge, placed it on the floor, then looked back at me. "Mason, listen carefully. You asked why one rule mattered more than all the others." He smiled sadly. "It isn't because it's the most important. It's because it's the only one nobody survives breaking." The strange ranger took one slow step closer. Holt raised his hand. Not toward him, toward me. "Run." Emily grabbed my arm. We sprinted through the rear exit as shouting erupted inside the station. I heard furniture overturn, glass shatter. Then, silence. Absolute silence. The same silence I'd heard in the forest. The birds stopped. The wind disappeared. Everything stopped. Emily kept pulling me forward. We reached the parking lot. Every patrol vehicle was gone. Not stolen. Gone. Only one truck remained. Mine. The engine was already running. I never remembered starting it. Emily shoved me toward the driver's seat. "Leave. What about everyone else? They know. They've always known." She slammed the door. I rolled down the window. "Come with me." She smiled. A tired smile. I already stayed too long. Then she stepped backward, into the darkness between the trees. She never came back out. I drove until sunrise. I never looked in the mirrors. Not once. When daylight finally came, I stopped at a gas station nearly 200 miles away. The first thing I did was buy another phone. The second was search the National Park Service website. Yosemite Ranger staff. Every employee. Every photograph. Chief Aaron Holt wasn't there. Neither was Emily Vargas. Neither were 9 other people I'd worked beside for weeks. According to every official record, they had never existed. I still receive emails from Yosemite. Every month, they thank me for my continued service. My employee number remains active. My payroll still processes. Someone is cashing those checks. It isn't me. Last week, a tourist uploaded vacation photos from Yosemite. One image showed a group of park rangers helping visitors near Tunnel View. I counted them. 23. The park officially employs 22. The extra ranger stood at the very back, hands folded behind his back, watching the camera, watching me. When I zoomed in, his face finally stayed the same. It was mine, not the way I look now, the way I'll look in another 20 years. Older, calmer, smiling, as if I'd been working there my entire life. And for the first time since I escaped, I wasn't wondering whether Yosemite had followed me. I was wondering if I'd ever actually left.